come to everything. Sometimes he would walk even, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, he just wanted to be around us whenever he could. So he had been coming for about a year, and he was a hard kid because of these issues. Like I said, he would get angry, and he was a hard kid to have around sometimes. But we just loved on him as much as we could. So he'd been coming for about a year, and it came to his birthday. And he invited his campus life leaders, which are just adults. You know, this is I think it was a sophomore in high school, and he's inviting these two adult people that are mentors in his life. And he invited a couple of students from club, and the students didn't show up, and the leaders did. And that was his birthday party. That was his 16th birthday party, was him and two adults. And we thought, you know, that's not a good enough birthday party. So we actually went ahead and called up all the students at club, and we said, all right, we're doing a birthday party for Justin at club this week. And so some kids brought presents, and we had decorations, and we got a cake, and it was a surprise thing. We didn't tell Justin it was happening. And when he got there, we all, you know, surprise, and he was blown away. And he went home telling his campus life leader that that was the best birthday he had ever had, because it was the only one that his friends came to. And it was just like I mean, it just blew our minds that this, you know, kids are growing up that way. Kids don't have anyone to belong to, any place to belong to. And so that's really what club becomes for us. It's a way for kids to belong to something. And so just to finish Justin's story so you can hear it, Justin went on a couple of our trips and, you know, continued to be the kind of kid that showed up to everything. And we've just seen his life just totally turn around. He's not the same kid that gets angry all the time. He's a kid that has friends, people that he can call up, and he knows that they'll be there for him. And then recently we just went on a ski trip where we presented the gospel to the whole group, and Justin said yes to Jesus. Didn't grow up in a Christian family, didn't have anybody else pursuing him in that way. But we got to him, and because of our unique position on those campuses, we're able to find a kid like Justin and just completely turn his life around. With the, you know, just Jesus turned his life around. We were just a part of the process. So anyway, so that's really what campus life is. Another thing that we do a lot, I kind of alluded to it, we go on trips. That's a big way, another strategic thing for us, because we feel like there's so much around going on all the time that's distracting, that it's really strategic to get kids out of that. So how many of you guys have kids who have a cell phone? How many of you guys wish that the cell phone was not always attached to them? You know, they're always checking in. We have the same thing at club. I mean, it's like every kid, you have to almost just tell them, no phones, just keep them away. So that's what helps with taking them out of that reality. So we take them out of that. We ask them to disconnect from the world a little bit. And we go to places like, we take a ski trip every year, and we go to camp every year. So camp is a week long, and I'm going to tell you a story about camp as well. There was a girl who was a senior in high school, and she was a campus life kid, and so fit that profile of didn't come from a Christian home, wasn't a part of a church, nobody else was pursuing her, but she liked campus life because her friends went and because it was different than all that stuff, and so she was coming to campus life. But she never went on a trip because she didn't have enough money to go on a trip. And it was her senior year, and I knew that, I was like, this girl's got to get on a trip. So it was like my goal. I was like, I want to get her to go on a trip this year. And so at the very end of the year, we had this camp coming up. And so you can go to camp as a student, or you can go to camp and work. And so you go there and like you help make the camp happen. So you're just like a student that's there to help work the camp. And the work part of the camp costs like a couple $100. The work part of the camp only costs $50. And so I was like, I think I could sell her on $50 for camp. So I approached her. I said, hey, what would you say if I told you you could go to camp for $50? And she's like, oh yeah, I'd love it. And so I got her on camp. We went up to Canada. The camp was in Canada. And for a week, she was, again, disconnected from her world here, disconnected from her family life, her friends, everything that just is distracting. And although she was working and not getting to play the games and some of those kind of things, she still got to hear the message, the gospel, as the speaker kind of unfolded it throughout the week. And on the last night, she said yes. And so just another great story of how a trip can just pull kids out of that comfort zone and get them to think about Jesus in a way they never had before. So that girl, her name is Shelby, and she came up today to share a little bit with you.
Hi, I'm obviously Shelby. I had started going to Campus Life because Bryan and his ministry partner Allison and some of their volunteers would come to lunch every week and, talk about this club and how they played games and had fun. And so I finally gave in. I was like, all right, let's go check it out. And it was really fun. It was something that, I could call my own, something that I belonged to where I didn't feel judged or I felt like everyone was a part of. I started going, and I continuously miss, the Worlds of Fun trips to Kansas City and ski trips because my family, there's 5 of us, and my parents didn't really care much about Campus Life, and they really didn't get it, and we couldn't afford it. And so last year, Bryan, came to me, it was a couple weeks, I think maybe a week or 2 before graduation, and him and his now wife had approached me or whatever, and they were like, we have this camp coming up. You said you couldn't afford camp, but this one's $50. I think you could probably make this happen. If you can't, we can make this happen for you. So I'm like, okay, where are we going? And I love traveling, and so they said Canada. We ended up going to Canada. I got on the trip, and I really didn't get the whole Christian thing yet. And I was like, I think it was we go through stages at camp of talking about, they talk with the kids about their mess and their home life and where God sits into it. And I remember they gave the kids 30 minutes to go sit by themselves and figure out what God means to them. And I wasn't a Christian, and so I had heard this message, and I took one of the leaders aside. I was like, I don't know what God is. I don't get it. Why do you guys do this? Why am I here? And I just started crying. And she presented the gospel to me in a deeper way and helped me understand that I can say yes to God and that God can help me through my family problems and the fact that I party too much and things like that. And I just cried, and she's like, do you want to say yes to God? And I'm like, yes, I want God. I want what you guys have because it's so amazing, and I can just see it in your lives. And so I said yes, and then through the help of fundraising and generous people, I got to go to camp as a student. And so then I got to sit through the games and the camp experience, and I met the friends, and it was just a wonderful experience where I was just like, God, this is what I want to do. I want to be a Campus Life leader. I want to work for you. I want to go on missions trips and things like that. And it was great for the summer that I was gone away from my family and my party friends the whole time. When I got home, it was a whole different story. Sibling problems. My brother was an alcoholic. My dad was getting back from Iraq. My parents were getting along, all this family stuff that just kind of threw me for a turn. I'm like, God, what is this? As I went into my freshman year of college, I moved out because I didn't want to be around my family. Moved out with a roommate, and her boyfriend moved in. Well, he started selling drugs. He started giving me and my friends drugs for free, and I was back in this place of I didn't have Campus Life every week to keep me accountable. I didn't have something to keep me accountable, and so at a point, I got so unhappy that I was like, God, I'm going to walk away from you. I don't see how you're working in my life. You're not stopping this from happening. And so I chose to walk away from the one thing that I'd said yes to a couple months ago that made my life happy. My life progressively got a lot worse. I wasn't even really talking to my family. I was abusing drugs and alcohol to the max, and I just got to a point in my life where I was like, I'm done. I'm so not doing this anymore. It's not worth it, and I'm done, and I was just ready to give up. And I had attempted to a couple times. And then at one point, I cried, and I'm like, God, I need your help. And I finally realized that's what I was doing wrong, was I refused to ask God for help. I'd been avoiding Chelsea, who's Bryan's wife now, for numerous months when she asked to meet with